Now, in this particular section, what I'm, again, Quapa, I forgot I'm ready to get into this stuff because I'm just kind of going one after the other. But Aquaba, and welcome back. This is section 6. Section 6. And so we're going to talk about these beautiful bronzes that a lot of people have. You might be familiar with it. You might have seen it in a book. You might have seen it in National Geographic, whatever. And so, and we're going to talk about the open space on top of the head. They don't talk about that. You know, when you watch that video that talks about the 4-step process, they don't really talk a lot about that. And so I'm going to kind of share that with you here. So this is what that opening is for. It's for an elephant tusk that has been intricately carved that fits into the top of that headspace. And these are all royal, regal depictions of people. So these are all people who have who are perceived as having important contributions to society. So therefore, they are being commended. And then so now, we're looking at it in a museum. Of course, it's not the original context. The original context would have been something like this. So on altars, um, in spaces where offerings are made, and these, each one of these heads, and it looks like we have 4. I just wanted to make sure there wasn't one hidden somewhere that I wasn't saying. Looks like we have 4 here that are represented. And so this is 4 specific individuals, okay, that is related to the person who set up this altar, related to the culture that this altar resides within. And so now, why elephant tusk? You know, because that's what I was wondering. So I'm looking at, again, astute observationist of nature. And so I went to go check out, oh, what are elephant tusks used for? They're used for moving things, lifting things, um, certainly for defensiveness. If people, if I'm sorry, people, if the elephant needs to defend itself, they can be used as weapons. It can also be used for digging if it's necessary, or for gathering food. So it has multi purpose use. And if you translate that into the role of someone who is leading people, someone who needs to move, someone who needs to be able to lift, whether it's uplifting people, right? Someone who needs to certainly understand strategy and how to protect the group. Food would be important. And digging, whether it's digging to get down to the bottom of a specific issue, or making sure that you literally dig to make sure that you are growing crops properly, and that you're working with those who are um, are experts with and have expertise within your community about how to grow crops. Because more than likely, if you're royal, uh, you probably won't actually do the planting, but you do need to make sure that you've got people in your community who understand that. And so that would be part of your responsibility. Now, apparently, both females and the male elephants have tusks. It's the percentage is going down a little bit, um, but anyway, it and what I didn't know about tusk is that it's an extension of their teeth. So somehow it's like an external form of teeth, and because I'm not real up on elephant anatomy, I can't quite explain that to you, but it does seem to grow out of, like, and close to the region where their teeth are. So I guess if I had, you know, incisors or whatever, and I was an elephant, mine would, you know, come out of there somehow. And so I guess that's kind of sort of what theirs does. Um, the other thing that's interesting about elephants There's a few things that are interesting about elephants besides what I mentioned in that video. But that was along the Nile Valley civilization about how they can sense things. They're very family oriented too. So that would be another element. Family, um, um, taking care of one another, very community oriented, very compassionate. They have a lot of interesting traits. But the teeth, in terms of how they can get up to like 6 new sets throughout their lifetime. And they just kind of like rotate out and rotate in. It's the video that I watched about it said that it operates like a conveyor belt. I think that's absolutely fascinating. So that's interesting, that they would do that. So again, ability to regenerate what is needed, again, could be an important quality for someone in a regal position to know and to have. So here's one in color now. You're looking at, I don't think it's the same altar though. No, this one looks like it's slightly different. Made similar, but it looks like, yeah, this is different. But it's slightly different though. Okay. And then here's another view. Now, you notice that it's a whole lot of intricate carving that are on these tusks. It is typically the story not only of the person, not only the person who is being represented in that bronze form, but also their lineage, um, and stories that have been associated with them, accomplishments, all of that kind of stuff is going to be told as a story would be told on these tusks. Okay. All right. Interesting stuff. And so here's one that isn't inside of a head, but still, obviously it's been beautifully carved. Okay. And then here's an Ife head, which looks like it has an opening. Okay. Now, some of these were used, I don't know, because some of them had these open spaces, some of them didn't. Okay. But like when you see the holes down here at the bottom, these, let me get back in here. And then we're going to look at a bunch of these, but these don't seem to have those holes. They're like meant to stand stable on their own. This one right here. And some of the terracottas seem to be used for that too. And we were looking at some of those terracottas. But this one right here, belonging to someone who is Ife, and the holes that are drilled at the bottom seem to represent that it's supposed to attach to something. And the way that I've heard it explained is that, and I've read it to be explained that way, that, or have I read it? I don't know. I know that I heard it for sure. That it's attached to this piece that people wear. I'm sorry, not that it's attached to a piece that people wear. It's attached to like a mannequin. We would call it a mannequin, they might just create this, and I don't like the term effigy, but I'm gonna use it. But it is to commemorate who this person was. Remember, these very naturalistic pieces are a representation of a specific person. These are too, but they're not as exact. They have a little bit more abstract happening to them. These are highly naturalistic and meant to look like a specific person. Even when you see like on that video, hopefully, yeah, in that video, they show like, a little collection of them, 15, 20 at a time. And if you take the time to pause it and look, all of those faces have a distinct look. They don't all look the same. You know that you're looking at a lot of different representations of a lot of different people. Okay. Could be related, but distinct individuals. Okay. And then here's the early royal head. And so this one is the early royal head. And again, you can see how this one is made. Looks like little teeny tiny locks, right? Ooh, little even teeny tiny locks. Lots of work in terms of how that hair was done. Again, a specific hairline, you know, so it was not only was it styled, it was also cut in a specific way with scissors and probably with like a razor to get it to be shaven and have a specific sort of a look. But again, this piece was definitely meant to have a tusk out of the top of it. And they say that these are early, but apparently this early, middle, and late that I'm going to show you um, has been dismissed. And in terms of if it's early, if it's middle, if it's late, because it seems like that was an assumption, but it wasn't necessarily accurate. And so that you can have variation in design that hits doesn't have a timeline. You can have variation in design that doesn't have a timeline. And so that's what seems, because at first, and I think it was probably, I don't know, but whoever categorized it, I was going to say Europeans, but I'm not sure. Whoever categorized it seemed to have wanted to do that. If I find out that information and I update this, I'll let you know. Okay. And then this one is considered to be early, right? And this is this hatch mark that's happening right here. Also, what's happening right here, coral. And we'll talk about the importance of coral. Okay, we are going to come to that. And all of these have coral on them. I think they are also wearing coral in the hair, coral around the neck, coral on the headpiece. It feels like a woman. I don't know if it is, but it feels like a woman to me. Okay. This one, again, this is a coral headpiece. Okay, and then that is coral too. We're going to see a picture of a oba in a second where, let me see, show you. Okay, so this is middle. We'll come back to this and I'll talk about this as a coral piece. Actually, I can talk about it when we get to the figure of that particular oba, or the image of that particular oba that was taken. It was during the time when they had color photography, so it probably had to at least be around the 60s, 70s, probably 70s or later, and that the traditions are still being followed. But okay, so here is an oba crown made out of coral using material. These are bronze pieces, you know, so again, these were sculpted out of, and I'm just kind of flashing through really quick, but these were sculpted out of clay, and then they were cast to create these as bronze pieces. Highly shiny, would have been highly shiny, and the shine was valued very much by those from this region. Again, the opening, so we know what that's about, right? And then, excuse me, there's another side view. Now, this is what was considered to be late after a while, but again, they had to dismiss that as a theory. Didn't seem to be accurate. So here is a modern oba, right? We're looking at this modern oba. This is part of his, for lack of a better term, entourage, people who in his royal court. I like that better. People in his royal court with him. Now look at, are you checking this out? All of the coral that this man is wearing. He's wearing a coral crown. He's wearing a coral neck piece that goes up high. It's not real close though. It looks like he, you know, maybe that's the modern version in terms of wanting to make it so that it's not quite all the way up here like a lot of these are depicted. For me, that would be uncomfortable right there. But you know, hey, people have their traditions. Again, this is this shirt-like piece that he's wearing. Coral. Coral on his wrist. I'm trying to find that mouse. There it is. Coral on his wrist. His wrist. Coral on what we would call a skirt, but his lower garment, his lower body garment. Also, the fringe even down here has coral. His feet are covered in coral. So let's talk about coral and what it is. So often it's depicted in royal dress. Okay, looks like there's a brother back here who might be some coral beads, and this one over here, but you know, they not decked out like this one. Obviously, he's the dude. Okay, so the oba is assisted by royal dressers. Now, whether or not some of those are royal dressers, because I imagine this is heavy. Coral, this much coral to have on your body, I would think would be heavy because it's fabric. Looks like the bottom part is fabric. That top one might be like a like a netting sort of effect, like this one. And then underneath it, excuse me, is a cloth piece that I'm thinking it could be that they did it as a shirt underneath and then they did that part over it. Or it could be just that he has a shirt on and then he put this netted sort of coral piece over it. But let's talk about what coral represents. The mystical uh, is medicine and protection. Okay, and someone in that status would be concerned about all those things. I'm sure there's more in terms of its meaning. And of course, it's associated with water, the ability to be fluid. Okay. All right. So I'm going to stop here. And so this concludes section 6 is where I believe I was with this. So that concludes section 6, and then we'll start up with section 7 for Benin and Nigeria.